Hello and welcome. My name is Allison Calvert and I will be the host for this TLC session. We are excited that you have joined us today for starting from 1.7 and moving towards 3.9. Please welcome Timothy Cote.
All right, thank you. Can everyone see the screen okay, the presentation? Okay. I'll give you guys about a minute. I'm requesting that you guys grab something to write with, a pen or open up a blank document. All righty, my name is Tim Cody. I'm a current student at Ashford University. I applied for and was selected to present at this year's Teaching and Learning Conference. Initially, I planned on making this speech to inspire others to do better, but to be honest, it's probably better described now as an autobiography. These are the goals of my presentation. Goal number 1, lack of motivation. Just kidding. I know you guys are thinking, why is lack of motivation his first goal of his presentation? I was trying to be clever. It's actually not. My goal is to show you that even with the lowest level of motivation, desire, and self-control, I was able to create discipline and success in my life. And as cliche as it sounds, I believe if I can do it, anyone can. Here's a little backstory on me. I didn't come from a dysfunctional family or grow up in a rough neighborhood. I grew up in a pleasant middle-class family life. But growing up in a good family doesn't mean you will be good. Honestly, I was lazy, lost, dumb, a loser, a quitter, and had countless negative traits. I became addicted to nicotine at the age of 13, began drinking at 15, and had no real aspirations other than joining the military like my father and grandfather. Looking back, I think I joined the military because it was familiar and comfortable, something I knew that was possible because I had many family members pursue it. After joining the military in 2009, I was changed for a little bit, but my lack of care and drone-like mentality began to take over once again. It's now been 4 years since I left the military, and roughly 3 years ago, I chose to make a change in my life. I began to challenge myself, to look towards the future, to focus on my positive traits, and to take advantage of my life. Throughout this presentation, I'll be sharing stories of my past, and I'm requesting, like I said in my first slide, you grab a writing utensil or open up a blank Word document to write down the questions that are shown on each of the PowerPoint slides. My goal for this presentation is to show you that no matter where you're at, how down you're feeling, how many times you failed, you can do it. My hope is that at least one of my stories will inspire you to reach out to someone you know that is struggling, or that one of the questions throughout this presentation will have a positive influence on your life, even if it's momentary, because I believe beginning to ask yourself why is the first step to improving. The first question to ask yourself, what vice do I want to kick? I added a line for people that are immune to vices. Kicking a vice can be easy and it can be challenging. I'd like to talk about 2 vices that I've kicked over the past 4 years. From the age of 13 to 25, I tried quitting chewing tobacco more times than I can count. I tried every method in the book, cold turkey, through therapy, using nicotine patches, nicotine gum, and even Chantix, the almighty fixer. The longest I'd quit was with Chantix, and it was probably 2 months before I began chewing again. However, in January of 2016, I made the decision to quit. The second vice I've chosen to quit is more recent. I decided to quit in March of this year. It's a vice I've had since before I can remember. I'm going to guess that it started around 8 years old. Video games. Video games has by far had the largest impact on my life. Because of my desire of video games, I often found myself locked in my bedroom. In high school, I skipped class to play video games. I faked being sick to play video games. I disregarded learning and doing homework to play video games. I chose video games over building relationships in real life. Video games were my life. And while I'd love to admit that video games did not consume me in my 20s and the military as well, they did. I was fortunate enough to be stationed overseas for over half of my military career. However, just like in high school, I found myself locked in my room, obsessed with video games. I can count on one hand how many countries I visited outside of what was required by my job. 0. After transitioning out of the military in 2015 and starting to attend Ashford for my undergraduate degree, video games were still most important. I would bribe myself internally that the quicker I could complete an assignment, the more video games I could play. What ultimately led me to quit playing video games has been the realization that in 5 to 10 years, bragging to my peers about my max level character in RuneScape will have no meaning to them. The time I used to spend playing video games is now being used more wisely. With the free time I gained, I've delved into more productive activities in my personal, professional, and educational life. In my personal life, I took up more physical activities. I'm currently training for Mount Rainier climb that is scheduled for May of 2020. In my professional life, I've gained licenses in both real estate and unmanned aerial vehicles. And in my educational life, I've been able to focus more on learning the course materials. In closing of this slide, what is a vice you've tried to kick before, are thinking about kicking, or are in the process of kicking? I've learned from my experiences that deciding to quit is a choice that you must make. Medication, counseling, and prevention programs can only help so much. Ultimately, it comes down to you making the choice. And I get it. I totally understand quitting things is uncomfortable for various reasons. I challenge you to welcome that discomfort. And if you do, I promise it'll feel much better quitting than it will for the quick pleasure of doing that vice. The second question I'd like you to ask yourself, what are my dreams? A better question for those struggling to determine their dreams, what is something you would do if you knew you would not fail? Like many kids, I wanted to be a firefighter when I grew up. I held off this dream until 3 years ago, when I attended the local training academy to become a volunteer firefighter. However, like many things in my life, I stopped attending halfway through for various excuses too long to list. After dropping out of the academy, I felt horrible because while I took the easy road out, my desire to be a firefighter was still there. I remember driving past the fire station in January of this year and seeing the doors open. There was a sign outside welcoming volunteers to sign up for the upcoming academy. I knew I had to swallow my pride and try again. 5 months later, I graduated from the academy and am now qualified to work at the fire station. Completing this dream, I now know that firefighting is very labor intensive. Pulling and rolling 4-inch hose is quite demanding and something I cannot see myself doing for the rest of my life. But being a firefighter was one of my dreams, so I pursued it. What is a dream you have? You've tried and failed at and tried again. Once making that dream a reality, did you want to continue pursuing it, or did you create another dream? In closing of dreams, don't give up on them if you fail or don't succeed. If it's a dream of yours, make it a reality. Question number 3. Ask yourself, what are my fears? My life coach describes fears as an acronym, false evidence appearing real, meaning fears are just made up. And while this makes it easier to disregard them, fears are ultimately still there. To name a few fears, here are some I've had. Fear of failure, fear of judgment, fear of rejection, fear of change, even fear of success is something I've faced. I'm going to discuss 2 stories that are relevant to me facing my fears. At 19 years old, I was stationed at Osan Air Base in South Korea. This is just a year after graduating high school with a 1.7 GPA. That's less than a C average. My grades look more like A, B, D, D, F, and C. And to be honest, the only reason I had an A and B in any classes probably had something to do with the fact that my mom was a teacher of both. Maybe not though. Back to the story. I'm 19 years old in South Korea on a remote 1-year tour. Important side note, on these remote tours, you can leave the country for 30 days maximum. My supervisor at the time finally talks me into taking an online course at, I believe, the University of Phoenix. 3 weeks into the course, I took my 30 days to leave the country and headed back home. What do? I ignore the class completely while on leave and end up failing the course. Because of this experience and my high school experiences, I feared education. I never wanted to take a class again. I joined the military in the first place to never have to go to college. Joining Ashford in 2015 brought with it many fears. Fear of failure obviously topped the list. It's crazy to think that not only have I completed my undergraduate degree with Ashford, but that today, November 5th of 2019, I start my capstone course for my MBA with a current cumulative GPA of 3.92. My second fear story is about transitioning out of the military. Transitioning out of the military is no easy task, especially for a young adult that has only ever lived in the structured environment where every task is laid out for you. The lack of structure is not where my fear came from, though. My fear came from the loss of others around my age. 2 out of the 3 people that I knew that chose to transition out of the military ended up taking their own lives within 1 year of discharge. In 2013, I changed duty stations to North Dakota. One of the guys in my new shop was rough around the edges, not hanging out with anyone outside of work. He had an aura of rough, tough, and too cool. For whatever reason, he took me under his wing and became a mentor and father-like figure to me. Unfortunately, like most times in the military, he changed duty stations and was off to England. Not liking the environment there, he decided to leave the military and began his civilian life in the middle of 2014. In early 2015, he took his own life. I remember reading his Facebook post, apologizing to a state park for the mess. At the time, I thought he was referring to drinking too much and trashing his campsite or something. I later learned it was a cryptic post about the mess taking his own life in the park was about to make. Once I learned a few days later that he had taken his own life, I was devastated and confused. How could someone that had everything together, was tough and resilient, decide to take their own life? I thought to myself, I know I'm not even close to as strong or as tough as him. How am I not going to take my own life? I was scheduled to leave the military 6 months after his suicide. I was terrified, riddled with fear. 66% of the people I knew leaving the military ended up taking their own life. However, I did not let my fear stop me from transitioning out of the military. You shouldn't let your fear stop you either. To this day, my fears are plentiful. However, I've learned to face them head on with the determination to attack them and prove them to be fake. I believe you must first recognize and label your fears in order to improve upon them. So, what are your fears? Question number 4. Who are my mentors? A mentor to me is someone that desires helping others, a person with exceptional knowledge that wants to share. I've had mentors throughout my entire life, I just did not recognize them as such. My first mentor took me under his wing in high school. It was my vice principal, Mr. Flora. As you learned earlier, in high school, I was a rock star. Just kidding. I was at the bottom of the bucket, the shortest straw, or the ugly duckling. Mr. Flora took it upon himself to challenge and mentor me throughout this period of my life. I wrestled in the beginning years of high school, and Mr. Flora was big into wrestling. Mr. Flora created a routine for us, which involved working out 3 times a week. Wednesday at 6 a.m., Friday at noon, and Sundays at 6 p.m. Man, did I dread those 6 a.m. workouts at the age of 15. I remember he used to shine his headlights right in my window each Wednesday. Even with my blinds strategically closed, it was like a spotlight shining directly into my eyes. If his spotlight tactic didn't work, he would come up to the house and ring the doorbell. The rest of my family was not fond of this tactic. However, Mr. Florin knew more about these 6 a.m. workouts than me. Going to the gym was more than about building muscle. It was about creating character in me, and Mr. Flora knew that the gym would show me discipline and work ethic. I quit wrestling in the middle of 10th grade. I was so excited to not have to go to the gym anymore. I could sit at home, playing video games and being lazy. To my surprise, even though I quit wrestling, I was still forced to go to the gym 3 times a week, 6 a.m. on Wednesdays, noon on Fridays, and 6 p.m. on Sundays. Do you have or have you had a mentor that was not willing to give up on you? Is this a mentor you have been or are currently? The lessons I've learned from Mr. Flora are the same ones I'm using today. I now volunteer as a high school wrestling coach and try to show the young men that discipline and work ethic do pay off. Like Flora did for me, I've started a lifting schedule for the wrestlers in the off season. Sticking with the theme of mentors, the next question I would like you to ask yourself is question number 5. Who am I mentoring? Do you have a child, niece, or nephew, sibling, cousin, parent, subordinate, student, or friend that you could help by mentoring? One of the programs offered at Ashford University is a CHAMPS peer mentoring program. Students can sign up and become mentees or mentors in the program. The goal of CHAMPS is to provide opportunities for Ashford students to have access to the knowledge and experience of successful peer mentors to promote student success. I joined the CHAMPS mentor program at the beginning of this year, and I've been fortunate enough to have gone through 3 7-week programs as a mentor. All of my mentees have been older than me. They've had kids and families. Simply put, more life experience. As a young mentor with 0 experience with kids, I do have a 2-year-old German Shepherd that I'm told acts like a kid. I was still able to provide things for the mentees throughout the program. Being a mentor is not all about having more experience in educating mentees. A good mentor listens. They provide feedback. They encourage mentees to act. Anyone can be a mentor. Don't let fears of age or inexperience hold you back from becoming a mentor. If you aren't currently a mentee or mentor, I recommend reaching out to someone. For the teachers out there, you have a significant impact on the students in your courses. I know for me specifically, the most effort and time I've put into a class has been when a teacher leads by example in the same way. The last question I'd like to ask you guys is question number 6. How am I helping my community? Sense of community can be found in almost every type of human needs studies. In Maslow's hierarchy of needs, sense of belonging is found halfway up the pyramid. In Alderfer's ERG theory, he speaks about the need for relatedness. In Max Neef's model of human scale development, participation is listed as a need. What are you currently doing that is helping your community? Do you volunteer at a soup kitchen, donate your clothes, are part of a nonprofit? Do you help the Chamber of Commerce, promote the VFW, coach a sports team, volunteer your time to clean up trash? Do you help neighbors, work on a board of some sort? Are you a part of your neighborhood watch program? The ways you can help your community are endless. Even something as little as picking up trash off the ground or returning a runaway grocery cart. You know what I'm talking about. Those carts found scattered throughout the grocery store parking lot you're trying to dodge. We all have the ability to impact our community in a positive or negative way. Which will you choose? I know throughout this presentation I'm putting the pressure on you by challenging you to help not only yourself, but others around you. And to be honest, it is a struggle. It is difficult. There are sacrifices that need to be made. But I believe we will have a better world once people get out of their self-centered drone-like states. Together, we truly can do anything. I know I mentioned in the beginning that I hope this presentation has given you a question to ask yourself. However, if there's one thing from my stories that I would like to pass on to you, it's that people change. Encourage them to do better. Show them how to do better. Don't give up on them. And most importantly, don't give up on yourself. If you were to go back and tell me, my teachers or classmates from high school that I completed my MBA, they probably wouldn't believe you. I went from graduating high school with a 1.7 to graduating the Forbes School of Business with a 3.92. I understand my life could be much different now, and it still may be in the future. I hope I can continue on this path of determination and discipline. If you know anyone that is transitioning out of the military and needs a mentor or someone to talk to, please have them reach out to me. If you or anyone else also wants or needs someone to talk to or someone to hold you accountable, please reach out to me as well. We all have struggles. Let's work together to get through them. Thank you all for taking the time out of your day to listen to my story. I believe we have a couple of minutes for any questions you may have. I'll put my contact information up for the remainder of the time we have together. Thank you. Any questions, type. I don't know if we want to unmute everyone or.
Can you hear us?
Yep.
What are your next steps? You seem motivated.
Next steps. The dream slide is something that I'm working on personally. I think without dreams, you don't have goals. Without goals, you don't have like a strategy to go towards them. So you're kind of like a fish wandering around in the sea, not knowing where you're going. So that's my goal right now. I've also reached out to a mentorship program here that works one-on-one with students. And yeah, I'm going to participate in that as well. So those are some things I'm doing. All right. Any last words?
Great job, Timothy. Thank you so much for your inspirational presentation and sharing a little bit about yourself and your story. And thank you so much for everyone else who has joined us for this session of TLC. Please enjoy the rest of your day and the rest of the TLC presentations. Thank you so much.
Thank you, guys.